Greetings and welcome to In Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. Very happy to have this conversation, and I'll tell you why after we start. But letting you know that Edgel Thomas, MX Prime, he is releasing or he has released an album. I know the man's so hype. He voiced the thing, and you hear him as an artist inside the thing, but we'll talk about that too. So we're going to have a conversation with MX Prime about 6 days, 7 nights. Mr. Prime, how you do, sir?
I am okay. How things, my brother?
I am grateful, and I'm saying I'm grateful because looking at the work that you have constantly put in one foot in front of the other, and as you say, from the dark coming to the light, and yes, I think who didn't see it then, seeing the vision now. So who see we? We seeing what you see.
Most definitely. You know, it's been a long journey. Let's say it's about 29 years now. I started at the age of 16, leaving St. James Secondary School. And, you know, where I was told that, you know, by some of my dearest friends, you know, go out there and do your thing. We believe in you. You know, there would have been some kind of doubt from the teachers because, you know, coming out of a school like that where one is expected to go into the job market, you know, become the typical things, the conventional things. And I decided, nah, I'm going into the arts because that was something that I grew in. You know, my mom, you know, from an early age always encouraged me to watch talent shows like Scouting for Talent, Teen Talent, 12 and Under, Party Time. The list goes on and on, Mastana Bahar. And then she eventually said, okay, let's go out on the road Carnival Monday, see the culture in all its splendor. And that bug bit me from early, just arts and entertainment. And then when she decided, okay, she's going to, you know, give her life to the Lord and go into a different direction, she also stayed us there. But she always knew that, as they say in Brazil, the jinga in me was very strong, right? She knew that, okay, he wanted to do music. He wanted to be involved in the arts. So all I could do is just pray for him, support him, you know, be that parent that always encourages. So, you know, mom and dad especially. So, you know, all the credit goes to them for being that backbone. And, you know, by the grace of God and hard work, dedication, meeting the right people along the way, good things happen. It wasn't a cakewalk. It wasn't a bed of roses. You know, it was pretty challenging every step of the way. But without challenge, there's no change. And there's no upgrades.
I want to ask about that though, that backbone, because it's one thing for your brethren, people out the road, people at your lineman with the old man that you see on the corner who see you have a certain demeanor about you to say, yeah, that fella, something about him, or talking to you directly and saying, go through, I see what you're doing and I believe in you. But you see, inside where you have your parents letting you know, one, I support you, two, I'm praying for you, three, I believe in your talent and what it is you're going to do. What's the difference? What kind of significance is that?
Well, it's real good, you know. Usually your friends, you know, they're the ones, you know, seeing you every day at school, you know, beating at desks, in the school choir, at different events, at school bazaar, they may see you hold a microphone, things like that. So they may see, you know, you in your element and say, hey, this is something you could do. Parents sometimes being so close, but yet so far, you know, they miss certain things. That's why sometimes when the neighbor next door say certain things about your child, you don't want to believe it, right? Because you're too close, you may not be seeing it. But someone with an outside eye or ear, you know, who's observant in a different way may say, hey, these are things that you need to watch or focus on or encourage because I see this in this individual. But with my parents, seeing as I never hid my love and interest for the arts, you know, even a blind person, you know, could have seen, could have sensed, hey, this individual loves the arts, right? Whatever he pursues, he's going to immerse himself in it totally. And it's not going to come out you know, mediocre. It's all about pursuing excellence, right? And that's going to be a daily strive, you know, a daily walk, you know, but you're going to see the heart into it. You're going to feel that. So my parents, you know, they allowed me to be me. I tell people I have the best parents in the world to raise a child like me because I ain't easy, right? I ain't the I ain't the easiest person to deal with, you know, and they found a way, as all great parents do, to figure out, okay, this is his passion, right? We may have, you know, our own thing that we may want him to do, but this is what God has brought him here to do. And along the way, he may, you know, go into different areas, but this has to be his foundation, right? Because we're not going to stay the same place forever. Where you started off is not where you are currently, right? And hopefully by God's grace, 10, 15 years from now, you may be in a different position. Even if it is you still have the same occupation that everyone knows you for. Behind the scenes, you may have gone into different fields and no one knows, right? So you have to start from a foundation that is solid, where I wouldn't necessarily say you feel comfortable, but where you know you could get certain things done, right? And establish certain things before you start branching out into different areas or seeing where your talent takes you, you know, through connecting with the right people, through, you know, understanding that you need to have some sort of plan. You know, you need to set goals. And this is what I did without even thinking too hard. You know, some people will sit down and think, and overthink and then go anywhere. I wasn't me. I used to get up, leave the house, jump in a taxi, go down to a radio station, hang out with DJs, right? Figure out who's this promoter, who's that promoter, get into the clubs, try to hold the mic and do something, say something. So people would pay attention to you and your craft. And as they say, when you hang out with the dogs, you get bitten by the fleas. So everybody who I hung out with, you know, was able to pass on priceless information so I could be in this position today.
I don't know if part of that priceless information and some of the foundation you talk about is how intentional a great deal of your music seems. It's not as though the way that is crafted to me, and I was gonna say madman scientist because so I don't know if that's one of the fleas that bite you from Mr. Seaton, but at the same time, it seems as though everywhere you craft your music, it mightn't be the same that we expect. It mightn't be something that we've heard exactly, but
yeah,
you feel it as it resonates with you a certain way, and it's almost as though we can lock it in here. Hey, this makes sense here. But at the same time, while it makes sense theoretically, it also makes sense energetically.
Yeah. Well, that was the combination that I believe I stumbled upon, you know, being a youngster around a lot of senior people in the industry. You know, I would have learned from them. And actually, before that, I used to go to concerts and stand up and watch artists perform, right? See what worked, what didn't work, right? Or figure out why they did this. I used to hang around a lot of DJs and, you know, just watch the reaction of the crowd, you know, and I always like old music. I always like music before my time, right? And, you know, when I started composing and writing, I always try to take something from my parents and grandparents' era and put it in a way where my peers, the young ones, could appreciate it. Even if I'm coming with something serious, right? You wouldn't know it that serious until you relax your mind and say, hold on, you heard what you just said there, right? Like, take, for instance, a song like Soca Train. I was taking on serious issues in the song at the age of 23, 24, where I was talking about the industry, you know, where Uncle Gypsy sang everybody getting down on the soca train. And then I spoke about the fighting on the soca train and these different things. So I changed it. But in the same essence, it kept that joy. It kept that vibe. It kept that spirit where people they didn't digest it as a negative, right? They saw it as a message, right, within the music, also making us feel to free up, because I don't see anybody with a frown on their face when I'm talking about these topics in the song, which means it worked. The formula continues to work up to this day, because I believe in learning and in teaching or sending a message, it must also be palatable. Sometimes the taste might be bitter, but at the same time, if you show people that the bitter means it's going to be better, right? It's like going to the doctor as a little kid and they try to distract you before you get your injection. You know, the whole atmosphere is not tense, right? Okay, it's gonna pinch a little bit, but we're gonna distract you with this toy, right? Or we're gonna let daddy or mommy hug you up and give you some kisses, right? Or something like that. So for me, in feeding people music, it must be one for their listening pleasures first, right? And also for the physical as well. Once you are able to manage those two areas and create that balance, then, you know, positive results usually occur.
We're going to talk about balance when we return. We are speaking with MX Prime. We didn't get down inside what 6 days, 7 nights is about us yet. So we do that on the other side of the conversation. Stay with us. We return after this. Welcome back. We are speaking with MX Prime. 6 days, 7 nights on. Even before we get there, though, one of the last things you spoke about, Prime, is balance. And I want to ask you about learning to use your instrument as opposed to just writing, as opposed to just the energy, stagecraft. What kind of work did you use to work on your voice? Because sometimes people have a tool. Sometimes you have a car, a fast car, but you don't necessarily know how to drive, you know. So tell me a little bit about using yours now.
Well, from early, I figured out that my voice was different. I used to be whispering in the back of the class, and my teacher would say, Mr. Thomas, I'm hearing you, right? I said, me? Say, yes, you have a very distinct voice, right? And, you know, all in the house, whenever someone would call for my mom, they would say, who's this man I'm talking to? This was at the age of 13, 14. So I always knew that my voice would have stood out. And, you know, I was a bit of a character back in the day, growing up watching Sesame Street and all these different animated shows. I would try to imitate those characters, like the Sinister Sam and these different individuals. And much to the amusement in the household was like, oh, you do that pretty well. So I always knew that I could use my voice. Hence the reason why you would have heard me done the advert, the voiceover for 6 days, 7 nights, right? Because that's something that I ended up doing by accident, meaning getting into voiceover work, right? All the different drops you would have heard on the various radio stations, all the pull-ups, all the yeah, and all these different things, that would have been me. Right, that's something that I enjoy doing because I was a fan of radio back in the 90s, you know, with all the different artists doing drops to the popular radio stations. I would sit down and say, how they get this to sound like that? There was always a genuine curiosity for me. So I knew that I would have ventured into different areas in the arts, whether it be voiceovers, whether it be music production, whether it be mixing, mastering. I always knew that I love the art more than actually going on top of the stage, the behind the scenes, right? The grunt work, as people will say. I always appreciated that. I would stand up next to someone who's a roadie or someone who running wires for an event or the cameraman, right? And they would say, what are you doing here? As I just always have the appreciation for the people behind the scenes who make things work. And surely enough, with that level of curiosity came, you know, getting to know how to use things and also to realize that my voice could do much more than just sing a song, right? And to be honest with you, that has been very rewarding for me because in times when things might not be as fast paced or people say slow or, you know, the banga season or guava season comes, right? Where things are not really out there, you know, could tap into different areas for revenue streams. So, you know, I'm so glad that I took the time to develop other aspects of my craft rather than just depending on one thing.
Speaking about other aspects of your craft, there's some production work going on, sir. So I don't know if you want to talk about production work as a distinct thing or actually no, tie it into 6 days, 7 nights. Thank you.
Okay. Well, around February, let's say maybe around just after Carnival, you know, something just hit me saying, hey, you need to do an album. And I said, but I did an album last year called The Package, which featured Walshy Fire and DJ Buddha, some very notable names in the music industry. And I said, you really want to do another album now? You could still, use those songs, to shop, to push, to market. But then I got the idea, do a vacation album, right? So all the songs that is on this album called 6 Days, 7 Nights are based on vacation, the things that happen before, during, after vacation. And it took us, I can't say me, because I spoke with Johan Seaton, the madman himself, right? That, I want to do this album. He said, okay, no problem, my brother. So I started the production, and it took us basically 8 to 10 weeks to get this album finished in time to do reviews on some of the songs, right? Mixes, masters. So that's to show you the speed that this took place. It's not easy to do 12 songs, get them ready to be out there in the market just under maybe 2 months. It's difficult, right? And I can't tell you, the day-to-day running, this was a blur. It just happened, right? All the ideas came. It's like God said, okay, since you're doing this, I'm going to help you. I'm going to put this inspiration here. I'm going to make you look for these samples, this melody. Everything was just seamless. It didn't feel like hard work, right? After, when you go to bed and you wake up in the morning, you're surely going to feel it. But while doing it, it didn't feel like work. It just felt like an adventure, much like how I want the listeners to feel when they listen to the entire album called 6 Days, 7 Nights. We actually got guests from across the Caribbean, which featured Barry Hype, who's a DJ who comes to Trinidad every year. He, a soca ambassador. We got a girl from Tobago called Yolanda Job Thomas to speak on behalf of 7 places to go to see in Tobago, right? Another one called Strictly Babsy from Barbados, who a lot of people know online, right, to speak on Barbados. We got a beautiful lady by the name of Patrice Murrell from Bahamas to speak on things in Bahamas, to see and experience. So this album is a travel guide and a music album in one. So it's quite versatile. It could be used in the tourism sector, the travel market, and, for people, personal reels and promotions, because it's important that when I put music together, I can't speak for anyone else, but when I put music together, I think about what is going to be the end result. Where's this going to end up? Who's going to be using this, right? If it's not the song, maybe it's going to be the instrumental. You do not know, you may check your email one day and someone from this recording company or this fashion company saying, we want to know who did XYZ song, right? We saw that it was a person by the name of MX Prime, this, that. We would like to use the song in this particular campaign. So now I'm at the point in my life where I think about campaigns. I don't just think about putting out a song so it could get wheel and pull up on the radio every day, right? That's all well and good. We appreciate that. But now you have to think about where your music can end up. And that's, to me, that's the most important thing right now. It ain't about the flash, right? I could say another word, it is about the cash, but not really about that. It's about ensuring that your work shows up in important places.
That's a level of intentionality that I speak to. So yes, I get it. And we have about a minute and a half. I want to ask about one, the importance of getting insider information and all these different people to contribute. I also want to ask, how is it that someone with a demeanor, because it kind of reminds me of Shadow a bit, and even looking at you in the colors that you're wearing, but is a serious fella.
Yeah.
But when you're giving that energy as well, and it reminds me of there's an African saying that don't talk about a nice voice or a good voice, they talk about an effective voice, one that conveys the message that it's supposed to. How do you balance that demeanor with having people break away, doing all the things that they're doing?
Ooh. Well, my dad said something to me the other day. He said, for your personality, you should be in the music industry. It was like weird. It's a serious contrast. He said, like, you know, because you're not a person that out there and like to be in people's faces and stuff like that. When you come to a show, you just always reserve in the back. You'll tell everyone good night, hello, this, that, and then go to yourself. And then after the show, you're gone. You don't line, you don't hang around, right? And I've always been a person by myself. I grew up in a home, 3 girls, only boy, last child. I couldn't wait to get to 15 or 16 to vacate the premises on a daily basis because there's only women in the house, right? And I love women, I respect women, and growing up in that environment made me have a certain level of understanding and patience, right? And I wouldn't change it for the world. But as a boy growing up, you couldn't wait, you know, to get to that age where you know, okay, you don't need to be under these people right through. You love them, but you know, it's time for you to explore, right? And people will always say, you're a serious kid. But I was one of the few kids that used to hang out with people 15 and 20 years older, right? Senior to me, because I had the respect. I used to listen. I used to take in the information and apply it accordingly, right? And I can't change my personality. That this is my default position. But what I can say, it has worked because I've consciously said to myself, because you have this serious aura, right? Always try to complement that with positivity, right? Always try to bring some sort of joy to people's heart, much like what Full Extreme did, because the song said, feeling good like a new machine. It started with that vibration. So from beginning to end, everyone felt it. And even though this face, I tell people I can't change it. This is mommy and daddy fault. You understand? Even the voice, I can't change. That's DNA. Nobody can change your voice either, right? This is what God blessed us with. But how we are with people is very important, you know. And I've been able to connect with so many people. I've seen serious people tell me I too serious, and then we start laughing, right? Or grandmothers see me. There was a time I was in the U.S. Embassy, and a old lady, sorry, an elderly lady said to me, "You are the fella they call Maximus?" I say, "Yes, mommy." She say, "My grandchildren love you, but they ain't love you like how I love you. God bless you," right? And there was another moment when I was working at the radio station, and a man in his 70s or 80s came in to return someone's wallet, and he didn't make me out. I was just sitting on the desk, and when I rose my head, I said, "Good afternoon, sir." Tears welled up in his eyes. He said, "God bless you, son. God bless you," right? And I say that on my pause reason, because there was no greater feeling to know that the different age groups have accepted me for being myself. Now, you ain't gonna please everybody. That's life, right? But for the people that I've come into contact with and have felt my energy and my spirit, right? It is one where, again, I would like to say for my parents, I want to thank them, because for everything that I am today, right? It was their essence, their seasoning, right? And when they said, okay, it's time for you to go out into the world and make your mark, I took most of what I learned and what was put into me, right, to carry out into the world.
And we can see some of what you're carrying out into the world with this album, 6 Days, 7 Nights. MX Prime, thank you so much for the work that you have done and continue to. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.